All right, we're getting ready to start our third race of the day. This is Sportsman GT3. We have Steve Madison starting on red, Victor Abreu starting on white, Henry Hake on orange, Nelson Neto on blue, Joe Garanser on yellow,
Ready.
Joe Tremper on purple, and Don Parsons on black. Here we go. We got races going on.
Go.
All right, heat over. I forgot to flip my camera up. Okay. Steve Madison, Nelson Neto, Joe Tremper, all with 21 laps at heat. Victor Abreu, Joe Garanser, 20, Henry Hake, 19, and Joe Tremper, 21 also. So Steve, Nelson, and Joe Tremper all with 21 laps at heat. Fast lap goes to Joe Tremper with a 5.251. Looks like Nelson Neto with a 5.504, Henry Hake a 5.406. I missed Steve Madison with a 5.430. Victor Abreu a 5.452. And Don Parsons a 5.587. And Joe Garanser with a 5.598. Good job there, Ryan. Track. Wow, what a race. All right. We got Nelson Neto at 43 laps in the lead. Victor Abreu and Steve Madison chasing and tied at second place at 42 each. We got Joe Garanser and Joe Tremper tied at 40. Don Parsons 39, Henry Hake 38. Laps that segment. Nelson Neto and Victor Abreu with 22 each. Steve Madison 21, Joe Garanser 20, Don Parsons 21 also. Joe Tremper, Henry Hake each with 19. Fast lap. Looks like fast lap goes to Joe Tremper with a 5.302. Don Parsons and Joe Garanser, Don Parsons with a 5.329. Steve Madison with a 5.426. Nelson Neto with a 5.443. Joe Garanser with a 5.529. And Henry Hake with a 5.900. Good job, Ryan. Track, track, track. All right. Might have knocked his front end alignment out. Come on, Steve. Okay, heat over. All right, let's see what we got. We got, looked like a two-way tie for first place. Victor Abreu and Nelson Neto at 64 laps each. Joe Tremper, Don Parsons. Okay, excuse me. Steve Madison in third place with 62 laps. Don Parsons in fourth with 61. Joe Garanser and Joe Tremper tied at 60 each, and Henry Hake at 56. Laps that segment. Victor Abreu and Don Parsons with 22 laps each. Nelson Neto with 21. Joe Garanser, Joe Tremper with 20 each. Steve Madison with 20, and Henry Hake with 18. Fast lap goes to Nelson Neto with a 5.380, Victor Abreu with a 5.382. Looks like Joe Tremper with a 5.452, Don Parsons a 5.465, Steve Madison a 5.474, Henry Hake a Joe Garanser with a 5.500, and Henry Hake a 5.503. Got a blip. Just remember to come back and bite you, Jim Bell. Heat over. All right, that's 4 heats down. We got 4 to go. All right, Victor Abreu and Nelson Neto in the lead at 86 laps each. Joe Trimper, Don Parsons tied at 81. Joe Garanser 80. Steve Madison 80. And Henry Hake at 75. Laps that segment. Nelson Nadeau and Victor Abreu 22 each. Joe Trimper 21. Don Parsons, Joe Garanser with 20 each with Joe on red, so that's good. Henry Hake 19. Steve Madison had trouble on purple with 18. Track. Moving behind the line. Too late. Give him a. We'll give him one later at the end of the heat. The cursor was probably off. All you got to do is hit the space bar to stop it. Heat over. Nelson Nadeau and Victor Abreu still tied at 108 each. Don Parsons with 103. Steve Madison, Joe Trimper tied at 101. Joe Garanser at 99 and Henry Hake at 94. Laps that segment. Nelson Nadeau, Victor Abreu, and Don Parsons all with 22 laps that heat. Steve Madison with 21. Joe Trimper 20 and Joe Garanser and Henry Hake at 19 each. Fast lap. Nelson Nadeau with a 4.936. Now Nelson this is the first race for Nelson. This is the first race for that car, and he is 3/10 ahead of the field on fast lap. Victor Abreu with a 5.257. Joe Trimper with a 5.384. Joe Garanser with a 5.416. Don Parsons a 5.457. Steve Madison and Henry Hake each with a 5.459. They helped it out. It's called tire tweak. They don't make it anymore.
That's the soft stuff.
Yeah, it just softens the rubber a little bit. It doesn't really make them sticky. It just softens where you get a little more grip.
Boy, they're big fan.
Good. Well, yellow's a good lane. You'll enjoy yellow.
That's the fast one, huh?
You just don't have any real sharp corners.
You kind of flow it a little better.
Just got to watch that corner down there. Everything else is pretty good. It's a nap. Track. They got their 3. Heat over. All right, that's 6 heats down, 2 heats left. Oh boy. Victor Abreu and Nelson Neto are your leaders with 129 each. Don Parsons is in 3rd place with 124. Joe Trimper 122. Steve Madison, Joe Garanser with 120 each, and Henry Hake 115. Laps that segment. Nelson Neto, Victor Abreu, Don Parsons, Joe Trimper, Joe Garanser, and Henry Hake all with 21 laps that heat. Steve Madison came off a time or 2 and has 19. But all but one of the field with 21 laps, which is very good. Fast laps. Looks like a 5.331 of Victor Abreu takes fast lap. Henry Hake with a 5.337. We have Joe Trimper with a 5.396. We have Joe Garanser with a 5.441. Don Parsons, with a 5.403. Nelson Neto with a 5.481 on red. And Steve Madison with a 5.543 on yellow. So here we go. Track under the bridge. Every now and then I get a look. We got Nelson Neto and Victor Abreu are still tied for the race. We got one heat to go. It's a good race. So there's about a half a track difference. So we have Victor Abreu at 150. Nelson Neto dropped down because he had trouble on the red, which is red's the hardest lane, and he stumbled a couple of times and lost a lap, or half a lap. He's only a half a lap down to Victor Abreu. So actually, he's about to get his lap, but he's still half a lap down. So Victor Abreu leads with 150, Nelson Neto with 149, Don Parsons 146, Joe Trimper 145, Steve Madison, Joe Garanser each with 141, Henry Hake 134. Fast lap, looks like fast lap goes to Victor Abreu with a 5.321, Joe Trimper with a 5.331, Henry Hake with a 5.342, Joe Garanser with a 5.406, Steve Madison with a 5.429, and Don Parsons with a 5.464, Nelson Neto with a 5.471 on red. So it's a tremendous race. This first place is up in the air third place is up in the air. Fifth place is up in the air. I mean, we got 3 races going on within a race. So Victor Abreu, your current leader, is going to be on the orange lane. Nelson Neto is going to be on the green lane, so that's your 2 leaders. Don Parsons will be on purple. So your 2 leaders are side by side on the orange and green lane, about a half a lap apart. Your third place is close together. Here goes Victor Abreu there on orange. Here comes Nelson chasing him. Victor Abreu's got a fast lap of 5.40. Nelson Neto is a 5.5. He's got to turn it on some. The difference between first and second place is the donut. I don't think there's going to be, I think that first and second are going to be where they are at the end of this race. It's going to be next to impossible for Nelson to lap him with 20 seconds left. So we got to look at third place. Let's see who can pull third place off. My finger went through the windshield on the orange car. Have to re-glue it. All right, race is up, done. Leave your cars. Victor Abreu is on the bridge at 6. Joe Tremper is the red car. He's on 7. Steve is on 6. Don, he's on 7, then 7 3/4. Joe is 7 3/4. Henry, what car is yours? 15. Oh, Henry's the orange car with 7. Okay. All right, need to bring them to the bank. Bring your cars to the bank. All right. Victor Abreu is your winner with 172 laps. Nelson Neto is second place with 171, his first race. Don Parsons and Joe Tremper tied with 166 each, with Don pulling ahead by a few feet. Joe Garanser 163, Steve Madison 162, and Henry Hake 154. Laps that segment. Victor Abreu 22, Nelson Neto 22. Joe Grant, yes sir. I have to do some work to them first before you can do that. So Joe Garanser finished with 163, Steve Madison 162, and Henry Hake 154. Fast lap goes to Joe Garanser with a 5.338. Victor Abreu with a 5.341. Joe Trimper at 5.359. Nelson Neto with a 5.444. Don Parsons a 5.481. And Henry Hake a 5.457. Steve Madison a 5.508. So that was our race. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to get ready for the pro side and run that next.